Beneath the familiar surface of our world lies a hidden dimension of human history. These are the underground chamber networks, vast labyrinths carved by ancient hands for reasons we are only beginning to understand. By the end of this journey, you will see human history through an entirely new lens, discovering how these dark passages hold the key to lost knowledge. What drove entire communities to build cities in the dark, and what forgotten ceremonies echoed through these stone halls? How much of our past is still waiting in the silent world beneath our feet? These immense subterranean structures form a hidden geography of human intention. Far more than natural caves, they are intricate complexes of rooms, tunnels, and halls carved with astonishing skill. Archaeologist Anya Sharma calls them the architectural subconscious of ancient societies, physical manifestations of beliefs and fears that were never meant for the open air. This category includes a stunning variety of spaces. There are the labyrinthine catacombs that wind for miles, their walls lined with the final resting places of countless individuals. There are entire subterranean cities capable of sheltering thousands of people for months at a time, complete with stables, churches, and ventilation shafts. Then there are the ritual Hypogeum, sacred chambers dug deep into the earth for ceremonies that connected the living with the divine or the ancestral. The methods of their creation are as diverse as their uses. Some were painstakingly chiseled from solid rock, while others were constructed with precisely cut stone blocks assembled in the darkness. Consider the sophisticated water management systems of some networks, with cisterns and aqueducts that rival surface engineering. Contrast that with the silent, symbolic spaces designed for burial rites, where the architecture itself guides the spiritual journey. How did ancient builders without laser levels or powered machinery achieve such precision in perpetual night? The sheer scale of these projects suggests a motivation far beyond simple necessity, pointing toward a profound and compelling drive that we are only beginning to decipher. The need for safety drove entire societies into the Earth's embrace. When the surface became a landscape of threat from invaders or the ravages of nature, the solution was not to build higher walls but to vanish entirely. These were not mere bolt holes or simple shelters. They were complete subterranean worlds engineered for long-term survival. In places like Cappadocia, the evidence is breathtaking. Archaeologists have uncovered multi-level cities carved deep into the soft volcanic rock, designed with brilliant defensive ingenuity. Massive, circular stone doors weighing hundreds of pounds could be rolled across key passages to seal off entire sections from the inside. Entrances were camouflaged, often hidden within the very floor of a surface dwelling, invisible to any outsider. Imagine the profound sense of security and isolation that came from knowing your entire community could disappear from sight, sheltered in a labyrinth only you knew how to navigate. This was life redefined underground. The Derinkuyu complex in Turkey stands as a stunning example. It was a true vertical city, descending over 18 levels deep into the earth. It was not a dark, airless tomb but a functioning habitat. Sophisticated ventilation shafts, some over 100 feet long, ensured a constant supply of fresh air to even the lowest chambers. Deep wells tapped into the groundwater, providing a secure source of hydration. There were spaces for every facet of life, from stables for livestock to dedicated areas for food storage, wineries, and even places of worship. This was a society that could sustain thousands of people for months on end, completely cut off from the world above. What does this tell us about the world they left behind? It speaks of a surface existence defined by profound instability, where the only true safety was found in absolute secrecy. This relentless drive for physical protection, however, was only one side of the story. The very act of descending into the earth also opened a doorway to an entirely different realm of human experience, one not of the body, but of the spirit. But the earth offered more than just physical shelter. It provided a direct line to the divine. In the profound silence and absolute darkness of these chambers, ancient priests and initiates believed they could hear the whispers of the gods. The underworld was not an empty void but a sacred realm, a place of immense power where the boundaries between the living and the divine grew thin. Classical writers like Pausanias recorded accounts of oracles that operated entirely underground, where seekers would descend to receive visions and prophecies in the dark, believing they were in the direct presence of chthonic deities, the powerful gods of the earth itself. The very architecture of these ritual spaces was designed to guide the spirit. A descent into a place like the Hal-Saflieni Hypogeum in Malta was a carefully orchestrated spiritual journey. Carved over centuries, this multi-level complex mimics the forms of above-ground temples, but deep within the living rock. Its chambers are not random. Specific rooms feature unique acoustic properties, where a single spoken word can resonate through the entire hall, creating an otherworldly echo that must have seemed like the voice of the earth answering back. Carvings on the walls align with the sun's rays on certain days of the year, marking celestial events and connecting the subterranean world with the cosmos above. How did this environment shape the experience of a ritual? The physical descent mirrored a metaphorical death, a leaving behind of the old self. The initiate, surrounded by the weight of the world, in a space designed to alter perception through sound and limited light, was psychologically prepared for a profound transformation. This was the core of the mystery cults, a symbolic death and rebirth enacted not in story, but in the powerful, tangible reality of the underground chamber. This deep spiritual connection to the earth, however, was mirrored by a far more practical one. The same hands that carved out altars for the gods also had to secure the most fundamental resource for the community, the very water that made life possible. The same earth that hosted sacred ceremonies also held the key to simple survival. In landscapes where the sun scorched the surface and rain was a rare gift, ancient engineers turned downward to solve the most pressing challenge: how to preserve life-giving water and vital food supplies. These were not simple holes in the ground but masterpieces of practical foresight, designed to create stable, cool environments where resources could be protected for years. The ancient Persian Qanat systems stand as a testament to this genius. Imagine a gently sloping tunnel, carved backward from an oasis into the base of a distant mountain, silently guiding groundwater across miles of desert to the surface. This was not magic, but a profound understanding of hydrology, a sustainable technology that brought life to arid lands without a single pump or engine. It was a hidden artery, delivering a constant, reliable flow to communities that would have otherwise struggled to exist. This same principle of creating a perfect storage climate was applied to food security. In ancient Egypt, massive subterranean silos were engineered to hold grain harvests so vast they could feed entire cities for years. Their design was brilliantly simple, yet incredibly effective. Dug deep into the dry, insulating earth, these pits maintained a constant temperature and low humidity that prevented mold and rot. Their hidden nature also protected the precious contents from theft, ensuring a community's resilience against famine or conflict. This was resource management on a civilization scale, a direct and practical answer to the uncertainty of the surface world. Perhaps no structure better exemplifies this architectural foresight than the vast underground cisterns of the Byzantine Empire. Beneath the bustling streets of Constantinople lay a hidden, inverted cathedral of water. The Basilica Cistern, with its forest of hundreds of recycled marble columns supporting a cavernous, waterproof chamber, could hold millions of gallons of fresh water. This was the city's life insurance policy, a reserve that could sustain the population through long sieges when aqueducts were cut. Walking through such a space today, you are struck not by darkness, but by the sheer scale of human intention, the recognition that a city's greatness depended as much on its hidden infrastructure as its visible monuments. Looking at these ancient solutions, we are faced with a powerful question. In our modern era of complex supply chains and energy-intensive refrigeration, what can these low-tech, sustainable methods teach us about living in balance with our environment? They remind us that sometimes the most advanced solution is not to fight nature, but to work with its fundamental principles. This practical ingenuity was not confined to one river valley or empire, however. It sparked independently across the globe, a silent testament to a universal human understanding that our greatest security often lies just beneath our feet. This global tapestry of subterranean architecture reveals a profound pattern of human ingenuity. From the deserts of Egypt to the highlands of Peru, these underground chambers form a hidden network of human endeavor, each region adapting the core concept to its unique environment and beliefs. They are not the isolated creations of a single culture, but a widespread, almost instinctual response to common human challenges and aspirations. Archaeologist Professor Ken Feder observes that while their forms vary dramatically, the underlying principles of subterranean construction reveal universal themes of security, spirituality, and survival. Consider the vast necropolises that wind for miles beneath the city of Rome, their walls lined with the resting places of countless individuals from a sprawling empire. On the other side of the world, the circular, partially submerged Kivas of the American Southwest served as sacred ceremonial chambers for Pueblo peoples, connecting the community to ancestral worlds. We have already explored the multi-level cities of Cappadocia, designed for communal living, but contrast that with the solitary, overwhelming majesty of the Egyptian Serapeum at Saqqara, with its gargantuan sarcophagi carved from single blocks of stone, built to hold the remains of sacred Apis bulls. How did local geology and culture shape these distinct underground worlds? The soft volcanic tuff of Turkey allowed for the carving of vast, multi-room cities, while the hard limestone of Malta enabled the precise, temple-like chambers of the Hypogeum. In China, the deep lower soil permitted the creation of entire subterranean villages, complete with courtyards and rooms, a practical architectural solution that also reflected a deep cultural harmony with the earth. This global perspective underscores a remarkable truth. Faced with similar needs for protection, sacred space, and resource storage, human societies independently arrived at the same brilliant solution: to build downward. Uncovering this hidden geography, however, requires a special set of eyes, tools that can see through the veil of soil and time to map the unknown chapters of antiquity waiting below. For centuries, the full scale of these underground worlds was a secret kept by the earth itself. We knew they existed, but their complete layouts, their hidden passages, and their true extent remained locked in darkness, protected by layers of soil and stone. That all changed with the quiet revolution of non-invasive archaeology. Today, we can map entire subterranean cities without ever lifting a shovel, using tools that listen to the ground or see with light. Ground-penetrating radar sends pulses of energy into the earth, painting a picture of what lies below by measuring how the soil resists its passage. LiDAR, or light detection and ranging, uses laser reflections from an aircraft to create an incredibly detailed model of the ground surface, often revealing the subtle impressions of buried structures invisible to the naked eye. These are not tools of excavation but of revelation. They allow us to find the ghostly outline of a collapsed tunnel, the hollow space of a sealed chamber, or the magnetic signature of ancient hearths and tools. Dr. Leo Decker, a specialist in archaeological geophysics, describes how the data from these tools is fed into sophisticated three-dimensional modeling software. The result is a virtual reconstruction so precise that researchers can put on a headset and walk through a digitally resurrected hall, studying the tool marks on the walls or the alignment of doorways as if they were physically present. This technology has already unlocked new chapters in sites we thought we knew. In the Hal Saflieni Hypogeum in Malta, scans revealed previously unknown galleries and intricate artistic details that had been sealed off for millennia. In Italy, projects mapping Etruscan tombs use a technique called data fusion, combining information from radar, magnetometers, and electrical resistance to build a comprehensive, layered picture of the entire underground layout. This is like having a full-color, three-dimensional map of a city you have never set foot in. What new discoveries are on the horizon as these sensing technologies become even more sensitive? The answers are beginning to emerge from the data, guiding us to the specific stories of iconic sites. One of the most compelling tales of discovery begins with the rediscovery of a lost metropolis, Derinkuyu, the great underground city of Cappadocia. The rediscovery of Derinkuyu itself reads like a scene from an adventure story. In 1963, a local man was renovating his home in Cappadocia when he broke through a wall in his basement, only to find a mysterious room behind it. Curious, he kept digging and soon found himself at the top of a vast, dark shaft. This chance discovery unveiled the entrance to a lost city that had been sealed for centuries, a hidden world that would eventually be recognized as one of the most astonishing architectural feats of the ancient world. This was not a simple cave, but a meticulously planned subterranean metropolis. The soft volcanic rock, known as tuff, was the perfect medium for such an ambitious project, firm enough to be structurally sound yet soft enough to be carved with simple hand tools. The city of Derinkuyu descends over 18 levels deep into the earth, a vertical labyrinth of living spaces, storerooms, churches, and stables. Its design reveals a society that had perfected the art of underground living. Massive circular stone doors, some weighing over 1,000 pounds, could be rolled across corridors to seal off entire sections from intruders. These were not just barriers, they were integral parts of a defensive system where each level could be isolated and defended independently. But how did they solve the fundamental challenges of light, air, and water so far below the surface? Sophisticated ventilation shafts, some stretching over 100 feet upward, provided a constant flow of fresh air to even the deepest chambers, a natural air conditioning system driven by temperature differences between the surface and the underground. Deep, protected wells tapped directly into the groundwater, ensuring a secure water supply even during the longest sieges. Life underground was complex and highly organized. There were spaces dedicated to every facet of daily life, from pressing wine in rock-cut vats to educating children in dedicated rooms. Communal kitchens and worship areas fostered a sense of community, while narrow, easily defensible passages controlled the flow of people and helped maintain security. The social structure must have been incredibly cohesive, with everyone understanding their role in maintaining the delicate balance of this enclosed world. How did they manage waste, resolve conflicts, or maintain morale during months of confinement? The answers are etched into the stone itself, a testament to human adaptability. This practical ingenuity in creating a self-sufficient refuge finds a powerful echo in a very different kind of underground network, one built not for the living but for connecting with the ancestors. The ritualistic hypogeum of ancient Malta present a fascinating parallel in communal organization, but for a profoundly spiritual purpose. The echoing silence of the Hal Saflieni hypogeum holds more than just the dark. This three-level labyrinth, carved from solid limestone over 1,000 years in the Neolithic era, was a place of profound duality, a sanctuary for the living and a final resting place for the departed. Its very structure is a mirror to the world above, carefully replicating the forms of the massive stone temples that stood under the Maltese sun. This was not a random cave, but a deliberate architectural echo, a belief made manifest in stone that the underworld was a sacred reflection of the mortal realm. Winding passages lead from the upper level of the living down into the deepest, most silent chambers of eternity. The walls of what is called the Holy of Holies are still marked with spirals painted in red ochre, a pigment with deep symbolic meaning across ancient cultures, perhaps representing life, blood, or the endless cycle of existence. But the most captivating mystery of the Hypogeum is not just what you can see, but what you can hear. Modern acoustic studies have uncovered something astonishing. Specific chambers, like the famous Oracle Room, are engineered to resonate at a low frequency around 110 Hz. At this pitch, sound does not just echo, it seems to fill the very space inside your head. Scientific research suggests that exposure to this specific frequency can directly impact human brain activity, shifting patterns in the prefrontal cortex, which is linked to mood and emotional processing. Imagine a ceremony in that absolute darkness, the air vibrating with a deep, pervasive hum that is felt as much as it is heard. This was likely no accident. It was a technology of consciousness, a tool used by ritual specialists to guide participants into altered states of awareness, perhaps to facilitate communication with ancestors or the divine. What rituals were performed here? The evidence points toward complex rites of passage, where the symbolic journey into the earth, amplified by the mind-altering acoustics, represented a death of the old self and a rebirth into a new state of understanding. The remains found within the complex, representing the resting places of thousands of individuals, tell a story of a community that invested immense collective effort into honoring its past and connecting with the unseen. This spiritual focus on the underworld as a sacred reflection stands in stark contrast to the sprawling practical networks that lay beneath another great empire. While the stone chambers of Malta echoed with solitary rituals, beneath Rome a different kind of underground world thrived, a city of the dead built for an entire community. The Catacombs of Rome form a hidden mirror to the metropolis above, a labyrinth of tunnels and chambers that stretches for over 500 kilometers, a silent network holding the final resting places of countless individuals. Far from being a single, homogeneous entity, these catacombs were remarkably diverse, with separate sections used by early Christians, Jewish populations, and various pagan groups, all coexisting in this subterranean realm. Walking through a network like the Catacombs of Domitilla is to walk through a gallery of ancient memory. The walls are lined with row upon row of rectangular niches, known as loculi, each one sealed with a slab of marble or terracotta. But this is not a uniform, grim space. The tunnels open into cubicular, small family chambers adorned with breathtakingly preserved frescoes. Here, classical imagery seamlessly blends with new symbols. You might see the figure of Orpheus charming animals with his lyre, a familiar pagan motif, placed right beside the image of the Good Shepherd, an early Christian symbol of care and salvation. This artistic fusion documents a pivotal moment in Western culture, a time of profound transition where old and new beliefs intertwined. Historian Dr. Maria Conti emphasizes that these were not merely tombs. In times of persecution, these quiet, secure spaces became vital hubs for the living. Families would gather for refrigerium, a commemorative meal held near the resting places of their loved ones, honoring their memory and strengthening community bonds. Small chapels carved into the rock provided a sanctuary for religious gatherings, a place where faith could be practiced away from prying eyes. How did the management of memory in these vast cemeteries shape later traditions? The very practice of venerating individuals at their resting place and the architectural form of the basilica find their roots in these underground complexes. The catacombs represent a powerful human instinct to honor those who came before, creating a permanent, protected space for remembrance. This deep-seated need to connect with ancestors through monumental stone finds an even earlier expression in the misty landscapes of ancient Europe, within the silent confines of the megalithic chamber. The impulse to build with earth and stone connects cultures across oceans and millennia. In the rolling green hills of Ireland and the windswept Orkney Islands of Scotland, Neolithic communities left behind monuments that challenge our understanding of their world. These are the megalithic underground chambers, massive structures of colossal stone slabs buried beneath great earthen mounds. They were not crude shelters but precisely engineered spaces, built over 5,000 years ago by people who left no written records, only these silent stone testaments. Newgrange in Ireland is a breathtaking example. From the outside, it appears as a vast grassy hill, but within lies a long, narrow passage leading to a central chamber with a corbelled roof that has kept the space perfectly dry for over 50 centuries. The true genius of its design is revealed for just a few minutes each year, around the time of the winter solstice. As the sun rises on the shortest day of the year, a precisely aligned opening above the entrance, known as a roof box, allows a single, narrow beam of sunlight to penetrate the long, dark passageway. This shaft of light travels slowly across the floor of the inner chamber, finally illuminating the rear wall and its ancient, spiraled carvings in a dramatic display of golden light. How did these early farmers, without sophisticated tools, achieve such a perfect alignment with the sun's most significant annual turning point? The nearby passage tomb of Micho in Scotland shares this same celestial precision, its entrance passage also designed to capture the setting sun of the midwinter solstice. This was clearly not a coincidence but a deeply held cosmological belief made manifest in stone. The engineering itself inspires awe. The builders of Newgrange moved over 200,000 tons of stone and earth to create the mound. They selected vast curbstones to form its base, some decorated with intricate geometric art, and then positioned massive, multi-ton slabs to form the passage and chamber, fitting them together with such skill that the structure remains waterproof to this day. They did all of this without metal tools, wheels, or animal power, relying on wooden rollers, ropes, and the coordinated labor of an entire community. What did these chambers mean to the people who built them? They served as collective resting places for the remains of many individuals, suggesting a powerful focus on ancestral veneration. But they were likely far more than tombs. The spectacular alignment with the solstice sun points to their role as ceremonial centers for powerful seasonal rituals. The entire community would have gathered to witness the rebirth of the sun, a moment when the boundary between the world of the living and the world of the ancestors was bridged by a beam of light. This shared experience, rooted in the cycles of nature and the memory of those who came before, would have reinforced social cohesion and a collective identity. These architectural ideas were not confined to one continent. This same deep understanding of the earth and sky, this same drive to monumentalize belief underground, flourished independently an ocean away in the ancient Americas. Across the Atlantic, the Americas developed their own powerful underground traditions. In the arid landscapes of the American Southwest, the ancient Pueblo peoples built Kivas, circular chambers partially submerged in the earth. These were far more than simple meeting rooms. They were the sacred heart of the community, used for religious ceremonies and political councils. Their very form embodied a foundational creation story, the belief that humanity had emerged into this world from a previous one deep below the surface. To enter a kiva was to symbolically return to that place of origin, a powerful act of spiritual connection. A small hole in the floor, known as a sipapu, represented the portal through which the ancestors first entered this world, a constant physical reminder of their journey. Far to the south, in the high Andes of Peru, another culture mastered the art of subterranean theater. The temple complex of Chavin de Huanta contains a labyrinth of narrow, dark galleries and ventilation shafts built directly beneath its main plazas. Here, priests could harness the environment to create overwhelming sensory experiences. The sound of water diverted from a nearby river would rumble through the stone ducts, creating a constant, thunderous roar that seemed to emanate from the earth itself. Through hidden openings, a priest's voice could be projected into ceremonial spaces, making him sound like a disembodied divine oracle. How did these spaces manipulate a visitor's perception? After walking through dark, maze-like tunnels, a person would suddenly emerge into a central chamber where a towering stone monolith, the Lanzon, depicted a fanged deity. The combination of disorientation, orchestrated sound, and this fearsome image was designed to inspire awe and reinforce the authority of the religious leaders. The architecture was a tool of psychological and spiritual power. These American networks were not imposed upon the landscape but grew from it, integrating local geology and deep-seated mythology. The Pueblo Kiva mirrored the form of the earth and the story of emergence, while the galleries of Chavin used the natural force of water and rock to create its otherworldly effects. This pattern of working with the environment rather than against it reveals a common architectural wisdom. From the defensive cities of Turkey to the solstice-aligned tombs of Ireland and the ceremonial kivas of the Southwest, we see a universal human impulse to descend, and in that descent to find security, connection, and meaning. The polished walls of India's Barabar caves reflect more than just ancient light. They mirror a mind-boggling level of craftsmanship achieved with the simplest of implements. Generations of workers toiled with little more than stone hammers and antler picks, patiently pecking away at the granite. In other networks, we find evidence of fire setting, where builders would light intense fires against a rock face and then rapidly cool the heated stone with water, causing it to fracture and creating manageable slabs for removal. This was not a swift process. The analysis of tool marks tells a story of incremental progress, a project spanning lifetimes where a father's work was continued by his son and his grandson, all dedicated to a vision they themselves might never see completed. How did they plan these sprawling, stable complexes without modern engineering software? The evidence suggests they possessed a profound, intuitive understanding of physics. They knew how to shape ceilings into arches and domes to distribute the immense weight of the earth above. They oriented ventilation shafts to harness natural air currents, creating a breathable atmosphere deep underground. They carved drainage channels with precise gradients to manage water seepage and prevent flooding. This was engineering rooted in observation and perfected through practice, a cumulative knowledge passed down through the ages. The staggering polish on the Barabar chambers, so smooth it feels like glass, was achieved through days, perhaps weeks, of abrasion on a single square foot using sand, water, and relentless effort. This pursuit of perfection hints at a purpose far beyond mere utility. The flawless surface was not just for aesthetics, it was a form of reverence, making the stone itself a suitable vessel for the sacred. This leads us to the silent language etched into these spaces, a code of symbols and alignments that connected the architecture to the cosmos. These silent stone walls speak in a language of symbol and shadow. Far from being blank surfaces, they are intricate canvases where ancient cultures encoded their deepest understanding of the cosmos, the divine, and the human journey. The descent into the earth was rarely seen as a simple act of digging, but as a powerful metaphor, a return to the womb of a great Earth Mother, a journey into the realm of ancestors, or a passage to meet chthonic deities. This profound symbolism is etched into the very stone, in the form of spirals that might represent the cycle of life and death, labyrinths that chart a difficult path to enlightenment, and carvings of powerful underworld creatures. Iconographer Dr. Elena Vorobova describes these symbols not as mere decoration, but as maps of a spiritual geography. They were guides for the initiate, providing a visual script for a ritual journey through stages of transformation or for navigating the challenges of the afterlife. The architecture itself reinforces this sacred narrative. At Newgrange, the entire structure is a celestial clock, with the solstice sunrise beam acting as a divine hand that illuminates the inner chamber. This was not just an observation of a solar event. It was the physical embedding of a cosmic cycle into a human ritual, making the turning of the year a tangible, dramatic experience within the Earth's embrace. What universal human experiences do these subterranean symbols capture? They speak to our shared fascination with cycles, our yearning for connection with forces greater than ourselves, and our profound questions about what lies beyond the horizon of our known existence. This rich symbolic language is the key to unlocking the ultimate purpose of these networks, suggesting they were far more than shelters or tombs, but were, in fact, instruments for touching the divine. These silent chambers, however, do not always give up their secrets so easily. While the uses of many networks are clear, from granaries to cities, others stand in stark ambiguity, their true purpose lost to time and sparking intense debate among researchers. For these enigmatic sites, the theories diverge dramatically. Some propose they functioned as precise astronomical observatories, their passages aligned not just with solstices but with specific stars, tracking celestial cycles over vast periods. Others suggest they were repositories for esoteric knowledge, safeguarding the sophisticated teachings of a priesthood from a troubled surface world. There are even hypotheses that frame them as shelters from cataclysmic events, whether global climate shifts or remembered cosmic impacts, built by societies determined to preserve their way of life through a planetary ordeal. This is where historical interpretation becomes a fascinating and sometimes contentious field of study. Certain authors, like Graham Hancock, look at the similarities between widely separated sites, such as the precise stonework in underground structures from Peru to Turkey, and posit a lost common cultural source, a sophisticated prehistoric civilization whose legacy was fragmented by a great cataclysm. This idea of a shared, advanced ancestor culture is compelling, though it remains a minority view within mainstream archaeology. Another school of thought considers these spaces not as shelters or tombs, but as ancient universities. Could the very design of these isolated, acoustically unique chambers have been intended to create the perfect environment for initiatory schools? In a setting devoid of surface world distractions, where sound and shadow could be carefully controlled, knowledge may have been orally transmitted in a way that enhanced memory and focus, turning the act of learning into a profound, transformative ritual. The mysterious dolmens of the Caucasus region exemplify this puzzle. These stone table structures, often built over subterranean chambers, are found in their thousands, yet their specific cultural purpose remains just out of reach. Were they markers for ancestral resting places, territorial boundaries, or sites for specific seasonal rituals? The lack of definitive answers encourages a multidisciplinary approach, where archaeologists, geologists, astronomers, and anthropologists must pool their insights. How do we responsibly navigate the line between plausible theory and compelling fiction when the material evidence is so fragmentary? The answer lies in a careful balance, where imagination proposes possibilities, but rigorous, testable evidence must ultimately guide our understanding of these captivating, silent worlds. The quiet work of an archaeologist is a delicate dance between discovery and preservation. Every fragment of pottery, every darkened stain in the earth, and every tool mark on a stone wall is a piece of a vast, silent story waiting to be read. To uncover the truth of these underground chambers without destroying it, researchers rely on a meticulous, layered approach. The first principle is stratigraphy, the science of reading soil layers like the pages of a book. By carefully excavating one thin, horizontal level at a time, archaeologists can reconstruct the sequence of events, determining which wall was built first, when a tunnel was expanded, or if a chamber was repurposed centuries after its initial construction. This chronological framework is then anchored in time by radiocarbon dating. Any organic material left behind, a wooden support beam, a charred seed from a meal, or even the soot from an ancient torch can be analyzed. By measuring the decay of carbon-14 in these materials, scientists can assign a remarkably precise date, telling us not just when a chamber was carved, but when it was actually in use. But the story does not end with dates and sequences. The objects left behind whisper details about the people themselves. Specialists in material culture study the shapes and decorations of pottery shards to trace cultural connections and trade routes across vast distances. A single, distinctive style of vessel found in a chamber can reveal that its builders were in contact with a civilization hundreds of miles away. The analysis of tools, from simple stone hammers to sophisticated metal chisels, tells us not only about their technological capabilities, but also about the specialized labor that such massive projects required. Perhaps the most intimate insights come from the study of the individuals who built and used these spaces. Through the careful analysis of remains, researchers can reconstruct health challenges, common illnesses, and dietary patterns. In the catacombs of Paris, for instance, isotopic analysis of bones provided a window into the lives of a medieval population, revealing what they ate and even identifying individuals who had migrated to the city from distant regions during their lifetimes. This transforms anonymous resting places into a tapestry of individual stories and community resilience. This profound responsibility to learn from the past is always balanced by a fundamental duty to protect it. How do we justify the careful disturbance of a site that has been sealed for millennia? The answer lies in a strict ethical code that prioritizes minimal intervention. Modern archaeology is less about treasure hunting and more about information gathering. Non-invasive techniques like ground-penetrating radar and three-dimensional scanning are always the first choice, creating a digital twin of a site before a single trowel touches the earth. When excavation is necessary, it is conducted with surgical precision, and every item and its exact location is meticulously recorded. The ultimate goal is often to rebury a site after study, preserving it for future generations who will have even better technologies to understand it. This ethical framework ensures that our quest for knowledge does not erase the very history we seek to understand. The challenges, however, are as deep and complex as the chambers themselves. testing the limits of both technology and human ingenuity. Preserving these silent worlds is a constant battle against invisible forces. The very air inside a sealed chamber can become an agent of decay. When a hidden entrance is opened after centuries, the sudden change in humidity and the introduction of outside air can trigger a catastrophic chain reaction. Delicate paintings that have survived for millennia can begin to blister and flake within days. Ancient inscriptions, their shallow grooves filled with centuries of dust, can be eroded by the breath of visitors. Conservationists now fight to control these microclimates, sometimes even sealing sites back up after study to preserve their delicate environmental balance. It is a race against time, and the challenges only multiply with a site's scale and fame. The extensive Khu Khai Tunnel network in Vietnam, for instance, still holds vast, uncharted sections. These areas remain vulnerable to structural collapse or to unauthorized exploration by individuals unaware of the fragile history they are treading upon. The impact of tourism itself presents a complex dilemma. The footfalls of thousands of visitors can slowly wear away original stone floors, while the cumulative effect of body heat and moisture alters the interior atmosphere. How do we balance public access with the imperative to protect? International bodies like UNESCO are at the forefront of establishing sustainable protocols, creating models for managed access and environmental monitoring at World Heritage Sites. But what if we could study and share these spaces without anyone ever setting foot inside? This is the promise of digital preservation. High-resolution laser scanning can capture every crack and contour of a chamber, creating a perfect three-dimensional replica. Multispectral imaging can reveal faded paintings and carvings invisible to the naked eye. These digital twins allow researchers from across the globe to conduct virtual fieldwork, measuring, analyzing, and collaborating without any risk to the original site. They also offer the public an immersive way to experience these fragile places, ensuring that even if a chamber must be closed for its own protection, its story remains open and accessible to all. These digital archives are more than just backups, they are dynamic tools for discovery. The same three-dimensional model that preserves a site can be run through structural analysis software, revealing hidden stresses and potential collapse zones long before they become visible to the human eye. Archaeologists can digitally peel back layers of sediment or later modifications, visually restoring a chamber to its original appearance. The ability to simulate environmental conditions is equally transformative. Researchers can model airflow through ancient ventilation shafts, testing theories about how these systems functioned, or calculate the precise path of sunlight through an entire year to confirm suspected astronomical alignments. This digital sandbox allows for endless experimentation without any risk to the irreplaceable physical site. The non-profit SciArc has pioneered this work, creating a digital library of the world's most vulnerable heritage. Their project at Petra in Jordan involved scanning not just the famous treasury facade but the entire landscape, including the intricate subterranean tombs carved into the rose-red cliffs. This comprehensive dataset captures the site in a moment in time, a digital snapshot against which future changes can be measured. For the public, these models are gateways. Virtual reality platforms transform abstract data into an experience. You can put on a headset and stand in the main chamber of a tomb, looking up at the ceiling carvings, or walk the length of a dark tunnel, gaining an intuitive sense of scale and space that a photograph can never provide. This fosters a powerful, personal connection to a heritage that may be thousands of miles away. How can these archives help us reconstruct what has been lost? When sections of a network have collapsed or been deliberately filled in, the digital model can act as a scaffold. By analyzing the patterns and proportions of intact areas, algorithms can propose plausible reconstructions of damaged chambers, offering a glimpse into their original form. This technological frontier is now revealing connections that were once invisible. By comparing the precise dimensional data from sites across different continents, researchers can identify shared architectural ratios or construction techniques, asking new questions about the flow of ideas in the ancient world. This digital layer of preservation ensures that even as the stone slowly returns to dust, the memory and meaning of these spaces are granted a new kind of immortality. The polished stone of a tomb in Greece and the massive slabs of a chamber in Ireland speak a similar architectural language. This is the corbelled vault, a technique where each layer of stone is cantilevered slightly inward until the opening is sealed at the top. We find this same brilliant solution in structures separated by thousands of miles and centuries. How did this happen? One compelling theory points to the slow, steady movement of people and ideas along ancient trade routes. A merchant traveling the Amber road from the Baltic to the Mediterranean might have carried more than just goods. He could have carried a story about a fantastic stone tomb he had seen in a distant land. That story, told and retold around campfires, could have inspired a local chieftain or priest to emulate the design, adapting it to local materials and beliefs. This was not a blueprint being copied, but a concept being shared and transformed. The same could be true for powerful symbols. The spiral, carved into the stones of Newgrange, painted in the Hypogeum of Malta, and appearing in the art of ancient American cultures, is a potent example. Its recurrence could suggest a shared symbolic vocabulary that traveled across continents, carried by the same currents of exchange that moved obsidian, shells, and metals. This symbol, perhaps representing the cycle of life, the sun, or a journey into the spirit world, resonated with a fundamental human understanding, making it easily adopted and adapted by different cultures. Yet, other scholars argue for a different explanation, one rooted in our shared humanity. Faced with the same physical challenge of roofing an underground space without it collapsing, brilliant minds in different parts of the world may have independently arrived at the corbelled vault as the most logical and stable solution. The spiral, too, could be an independent discovery, a natural expression of the human mind's fascination with cycles observed in ferns, water, and the galaxy. This debate between cultural diffusion and independent innovation is one of the most fascinating in archaeology. The evidence is rarely clear-cut. What if the truth lies not in one or the other, but in a complex interplay of both? Some ideas were so powerful they traveled the world, while other similar solutions simply emerged from the universal human toolkit of creativity and problem-solving. Contemplating these underground networks as a loose, early global web fundamentally reshapes our view of antiquity. It suggests a world far more connected than we once believed, where ideas could travel immense distances over generations. This shifts the focus from isolated, mysterious cultures to a tapestry of interacting peoples, all contributing to a shared pool of architectural and spiritual knowledge. The real story then becomes not about the stones themselves, but about the minds that conceived them and the hands that shaped them. The identities of the master builders behind these subterranean worlds are etched into the stone itself, not just as tool marks but as names and titles. In the rock-cut tombs of ancient Egypt, detailed inscriptions and vivid wall paintings immortalize the architects and chief artisans, celebrating their vital role in creating a pharaoh's eternal home. We know of figures like Ineni, the royal architect who oversaw the construction of the tomb of Thutmose I, a man whose professional pride is captured in his own written account. This reveals societies with a highly structured organization, where visionary leadership and specialized skills were channeled toward a monumental, shared goal. Yet for every named overseer, there were thousands of anonymous hands that did the work. The story of these workers is being pieced together from a different kind of evidence, found not in grand inscriptions but in the quiet resting places of their own communities. Analysis of skeletal remains from villages near major construction sites provides a poignant window into their lives. Studies of these remains show distinct patterns of occupational stress, such as arthritis in the shoulders and spines from years of lifting heavy stones, or particular joint wear from repetitive carving motions. What did they eat and how were they treated? The evidence from the workers' village at Giza is particularly revealing. Contrary to old stories of brutal slave labor, analysis of bones and food waste shows these builders consumed a diet rich in meat, fish, and bread, provisions that suggest they were valued, well-sustained laborers. They lived in organized barracks, received medical care for injuries, and were part of a highly structured, state-sponsored project. This paints a picture of a society capable of marshalling vast resources and human energy with coordination that rivals any modern enterprise. What then could possibly motivate an entire community to dedicate generations to a project they might never see completed? A labyrinth of rooms most people would never even enter. The answer likely lies far beyond simple payment or coercion. The motivation was woven into the very fabric of their worldview. For the worker carving a tomb, he was not just moving rock, he was helping to construct a vessel for his god-king's journey into eternity, an act that secured cosmic order and his own place within it. For the family digging a new chamber in a catacomb, they were creating a permanent, honored home for their ancestors, strengthening the bonds between the living and the dead. The reward was spiritual, a profound cultural payoff that promised meaning, honor, and a form of immortality through the enduring legacy of their collective work. This deep-seated belief in a purpose greater than any single lifetime was the true engine that built these hidden worlds. The sheer scale of these projects transformed the societies that built them. To carve a city from the living rock or raise a monument beneath the earth required more than just skilled hands. It demanded a complete reorganization of society itself. Vast resources, from food to tools, had to be managed and directed toward a single, monumental goal. This centralized effort often reinforced the authority of those who commissioned the work, whether a pharaoh or a priestly class. In ancient Egypt, the ongoing construction of a royal tomb was not a separate project but the very engine of the state economy, employing scribes, artists, engineers, and thousands of laborers. This immense undertaking physically manifested the ruler's divine power, a constant, visible reminder that their will could command the earth itself and shape eternity. The cultural legacy forged in this process, a shared identity built around a common, awe-inspiring purpose, could endure for centuries. These subterranean projects became unexpected hubs of innovation. The challenges of digging stable chambers, managing groundwater, and ventilating deep spaces forced ancient engineers to push the boundaries of their knowledge. Techniques for surveying in near darkness, principles of load-bearing architecture learned underground, and methods for quarrying and moving massive stones were all refined in these deep workshops. This hard-won expertise did not stay buried. It flowed back to the surface, influencing the design of temples, palaces, and entire cities. How did the knowledge of supporting a cavernous roof translate to the grand halls of a surface palace? The same understanding of weight and counter-pressure was essential. The communal effort itself was a double-edged sword. On one hand, working toward a shared, sacred goal could forge powerful social bonds and a collective pride that defined a civilization. On the other, such projects could also highlight and deepen social divisions if the labor was seen as forced or unfairly distributed. The legacy of these networks is not confined to the past. Modern civil engineering, from subway tunnel construction to the principles of geothermal heating, still draws upon foundational concepts that were first tested and perfected in the silent, demanding classrooms of the ancient underground. Our map of the ancient underground is still being redrawn with every passing year. Even with the most sophisticated technology at our disposal, the Earth continues to yield fresh secrets, revealing hidden chambers and entire networks that force us to reconsider the scope of ancient endeavors. Recent LIDAR surveys sweeping over the dense Guatemalan jungle pierced the canopy to expose something astonishing beneath, not just natural caves, but extensive subterranean systems deliberately modified by the Maya. These were not mere shelters. Deep within, researchers found altars and meticulously arranged artifacts, pointing to sustained ritual use in spaces that were completely unknown to modern scholarship just a few years ago. This discovery fundamentally shifts our understanding of Maya spiritual practice, suggesting a much deeper, more widespread engagement with the underworld than previously documented. Across the globe, similar stories of revelation are unfolding. In 2021, a team in Italy used ground-penetrating radar to scan the known Roman necropolis of Neapolis. The scans detected a clear, hollow signature, revealing a sealed chamber that had been perfectly hidden for nearly 2 millennia. This space, untouched by looters and the elements, holds the potential for a pristine time capsule, potentially containing untouched artifacts from the Roman era that could offer an unfiltered glimpse into daily life and funerary practices. Many of these breakthroughs happen not in untouched wilderness, but in the most familiar of places. A modern construction project for a new subway line or the foundation of a high-rise can unexpectedly break into a wall that is not brick, but perfectly cut ancient stone. A farmer's plow catching on something just below the soil can unveil the entrance to a space that has not seen daylight for thousands of years. These accidental finds are constant reminders that our cities are often built directly atop the hidden architecture of the past. What might the next decade of exploration reveal about the true scale and complexity of these global networks? Each new chamber, each newly mapped tunnel, is more than just a data point. It is a direct challenge to our historical timelines, forcing us to ask if we have underestimated the cultural capabilities and the spiritual drive of the societies that came before us. The line between ancient wonder and modern myth is often blurred by the shadows of these deep places. Underground chambers have always been fertile ground for legend, sparking tales of impossible treasures, lost civilizations like Atlantis, and mythical beings dwelling just out of sight. These captivating stories, while entertaining, can create a thick fog that obscures the tangible archaeological reality waiting to be understood. The persistent idea of a hollow Earth, with entire civilizations thriving in a sunlit world beneath our feet, often springs from a misunderstanding of vast, echoing caverns or the genuine, profound mystery of why some sites were sealed away. Similarly, the notion that a single, advanced progenitor culture built all these structures ignores the beautiful diversity of local innovation seen from Peru to Turkey. Historians like Dr. Brian Fagan caution us against conflating these compelling narratives with verifiable evidence, emphasizing that every claim of a lost world requires the same rigorous scientific validation as any other historical hypothesis. The true challenge for researchers lies in a careful discernment, a process of sifting through the folklore without simply dismissing it. How can they engage with these local stories responsibly without lending undue credibility to pseudoscience? The answer often lies in listening carefully, for sometimes these oral traditions preserve tiny, vital kernels of historical truth. There are documented cases where generations-old stories, passed down as mere legend, have accurately pointed archaeologists to the location of a forgotten entrance or the resting place of a significant individual. These folktales are not instruction manuals, but they can be cultural memories, hints whispered across centuries that deserve a respectful but skeptical ear. The ultimate goal is not to strip these places of their mystery, but to enrich our understanding of them, replacing speculative fantasy with the even more compelling story written in stone and soil. The stone itself dictated the shape of the dream. The success of every underground network, from a single chamber to a sprawling city, was a conversation between human ambition and the unyielding reality of the local environment. Geology provided the canvas and the constraints, while climate wrote the urgent needs that these spaces were designed to answer. In Cappadocia, the soft, malleable volcanic tuff was a gift to ancient builders, allowing them to carve entire multi-level cities with relative ease using simple metal tools. This forgiving rock meant that ambitious projects could be realized within a human lifetime, creating vast, complex habitats. Contrast that with the islands of Malta, where the hard, dense Globigerina limestone demanded a far more laborious and time-consuming approach. Here, the same act of carving was a monumental effort, but the reward was immense structural integrity, allowing for the creation of precise, temple-like chambers that have stood without collapse for over 5,000 years. The very function of a network was also a direct response to the sky above. In the blistering, arid landscapes of the Middle East, the primary driver was often water security. The Nabateans of Petra, masters of desert survival, did not just carve magnificent facades into cliffs. They engineered a hidden world of underground cisterns and complex water channeling systems deep within the rock. These chambers were not for people, but for the life-giving resource that made their desert capital possible, a direct answer to a relentless, sun-scorched climate. Meanwhile, in the more temperate and seasonally variable climates of Europe, the same principle of subterranean storage was applied to a different problem: preserving the food surplus that guaranteed survival through a long winter. Cool, stable, and hidden underground silos became the perfect natural refrigerators for grains and other perishable goods. This intimate connection between environment and architecture now serves as a crucial map for modern discovery. By analyzing regional geology and historical climate data, archaeologists can make educated predictions about where undiscovered networks are most likely to exist and what their primary purpose might have been. Yet this environmental perspective also reveals a profound vulnerability. As our global climate shifts, bringing more extreme weather, increased flooding, and rising humidity levels to once stable regions, the delicate equilibrium that has preserved these sites for millennia is being disrupted. How do we protect a subterranean city when the water table rises or when sudden, heavy rains find new paths into ancient, fragile chambers? The conversation between humanity and the earth continues, but now the stakes include preserving the very record of that long and ingenious dialogue. The next leap in exploration will come from machines that see through stone. Artificial intelligence is now being trained to scan the vast deserts of data collected from satellites and ground sensors, searching for the faintest geological whispers of a hidden chamber. These algorithms learn to recognize the subtle signatures of human activity buried beneath millennia of soil, patterns invisible to the human eye. They can analyze the minute gravitational anomalies or magnetic disturbances that hint at a vast, empty space below, dramatically accelerating the search from years to a matter of days. Alongside this digital detective work, physics is providing a new kind of vision. muon tomography harnesses the constant cosmic rain of subatomic particles from deep space. As these muons pass through solid rock, they are absorbed at different rates depending on the density of the material. By placing sensitive detectors around a known structure, like the pyramids, scientists can measure the muon flux and essentially create a three-dimensional X-ray, revealing hidden voids and internal architecture without drilling a single hole. This technique, now being refined for wider application, could one day map the entire subterranean layout of an archaeological site before any human ever sets foot inside. But what about the spaces too narrow, too unstable, or too sacred for human entry? This is where miniature robotics takes the lead. Engineers are developing swarms of tiny, agile explorers, some no larger than an insect, equipped with cameras and sensors. These robots could navigate a collapsed passage to survey a sealed chamber or meticulously document fragile wall art without the risk of human presence altering the delicate environment. The promise is a future where we can not only find these lost worlds but study them in perfect, non-invasive detail, reading their stories without turning a single page of stone. With such powerful sight, however, comes a profound responsibility. How do we protect the cultural and spiritual sanctity of a site when technology can render its secrets transparent from the surface? The very act of finding a place must be balanced with the imperative to preserve its context and meaning for the communities connected to it. This technological progress must be guided by an ethical hand, ensuring that our quest to uncover the past does not inadvertently compromise its legacy for the future. Our journey through these silent stone worlds reveals a hidden dimension of human history, where fear, faith, and a fierce ingenuity combine to create enduring monuments beneath the earth. We have walked through vast cities carved for communal safety, stood in chambers resonating with sacred sound, and marveled at granaries and cisterns that secured the most fundamental resources. Each network, in its own way, reflects a universal human response to the challenges of existence, a deep-seated drive to find security, seek meaning, and ensure sustainability, not by conquering the landscape, but by working in harmony with its deepest layers. The ongoing work of archaeologists, armed with non-invasive scanners and digital modeling tools, ensures this field of study is ever evolving. Every new scan, every freshly analyzed data set, has the potential to rewrite a chapter of our shared past, reminding us that history is not a closed book but a living story being uncovered in real time. Let this exploration inspire you to look deeper, to question the comfortable narrative of the surface world, and to appreciate the profound, patient legacy left by generations of ancient builders. We would love to hear which of these underground networks captures your imagination most. Was it the defensive labyrinths of Derinkuyu,